Really excited for Brendan Burke. This is our loss, but his gain. Yet again, Brendan is the play-by-play announcer for the Utica Comets game. And whether you listen on the radio or you're walking through the corridors of the auditorium, he's all over the place because the games are fed through the odd. He has just been named the play-by-play announcer for the New York Islanders.
That's so awesome.
What a big gig. And Brendan, good morning. How are you?
No one's better than me, I'll tell you that.
Going to the show.
What a stupid question on my part. How are you? Well, of course, you're... listen, you've joined the ranks of many, like Jim Jackson, who...
Flyers and Phillies.
Flyers, Phillies. By the way, Jim Jackson won an Emmy. I mean, you're on your way to an Emmy here, Brandon. This is it. So, but to be doing play-by-play in the greatest market for broadcasting in the world is pretty big.
No, this is, I say it's a dream job, and I feel like that doesn't do it justice. I mean, I would have said a dream job would be any job in the NHL on radio or television.
Sure.
And I managed to do it in the NHL, on television, in New York City, which not only, as you mentioned, is the best media market in the world, but it's also where I grew up. So I'm going home to the greatest city in the world, and I'm going to be on television in the National Hockey League. There's nothing more I could have asked for. And I was able to do it on my first try. It wasn't that, I had to spend 10 years in Columbus to get my shot in New York. I'm going to get it right out of the gate.
Boy, that's awesome. That is really, really good. And, I remember I was working with Jim Jackson at the time when Jim was, and it's a tough gig that you're in. AHL even is tough. I think you probably had it better than Jim, but I don't know. Jim's deal was Jim couldn't go on any road games. We had to hide it from management when he would go. They thought he should only do the home games. And Jim was required to be a salesman. He had to sell advertising. And I remember him coming into the production room one day and saying, "You know what? My father-in-law's thinks he can get me in at National Grid. I think I'm going to take the job." And shortly thereafter, Brendan, he got the gig with the Devils. With Philadelphia. So how about that, right?
It tests your patience. I mean, I've been doing pro hockey for 10 years, and I would say that out of the guys that are in the American Hockey League, that's probably about middle ground for the guys that have been in the AHL trying to get to the NHL. There are guys that have been for 15 and 20 years, and most of them, there's not too many young new guys in the league at this point. And when I came in 8 years ago, I was 24 years old and was the young new guy. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, Jim was in sales. A lot of the AHL broadcasters and ECHL broadcasters are in sales. I started in sales. My other responsibilities with the team now for the last few years have been I actually book all of the team's travel. So I book the hotels and buses and flights and meals and all that kind of stuff and make sure everything's coordinated on that end, on top of kind of having my hands along with Mark Caswell and, the media and public relations and the social media, and then, overseeing the game operations inside the game as well. So the broadcast was the most fun and was the thing I was most passionate about. Probably took up the least amount of my time during any given work week.
Well, now you're going to be in a position where you're telling the person who's working for you at the Islanders what to do. I mean, that's...
Listen, the fact that I'm going to fly on chartered planes and stay in nice hotels and I don't have to call and book any of it is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm really, really happy for you. Andrew?
And, we were so lucky to have you as long as we did here in Utica. What, you've been in the business for a while now. What was it like to be a part of this Comets team from when they started to now, and what will you miss most about it?
Yeah, I think that's a really special point because it's a special time to look back and say that I was the first to do anything, because in this business and in this sport, it's hard to ever be the first to do anything and to be, the first voice of the Utica Comets and to be, part of this team as it went through its Calder Cup run, and part of the team that put a couple of banners in the rafters. We're hoping for a third one, but we'll settle for the two that we got. And I hope that, in 10 years when people are looking back up at those banners and go, hey, remember that guy that called those games? He was good. So it's a really cool feeling to have been part of it. And it's something that I'll take with me. This place is still and will always be very special to me. My wife grew up in Herkimer. My wife's parents and grandmother still live here. My daughter was born here. So, I mean, this is a special part, not only in my career, but in my life.
That's awesome.
And I'll tell you, when you first came here, you talked about people remembering you. Hey, that guy was good. I remember when you first came here, people were saying, this guy's good. He's going to be an NHL play-by-play guy someday. The problem is there's only 30 gigs. You know, there's 30 radio gigs and there's 30 television gigs. And as you mentioned, you've got the TV gig. Can you talk a little bit about the process? Because anytime there's an opening, like you said, you were willing to kind of go anywhere to get your foot in the door in the NHL. Talk about the process when something opens up and then having it be one that's in your hometown market. Because I remember your name coming up for this position a couple of months ago. So obviously there's a waiting game. I'm sure there's an interview process. There's several others across the country gunning for this position as well.
Yeah, it was a process, to say the least. And to your point, with the amount of jobs that have opened this summer in the National Hockey League between radio and television, the only one that opened was the one I got. I mean, that's all you get. You get one chance, and it's almost like that. Some summers you get 3 or 4, and some summers you won't get any. I remember, I think it was like my second year in the American Hockey League, where we actually lost a job during the summer, where there were no jobs that opened, and honestly, it was the Islanders that wound up stopping their radio broadcasts and simulcasting their TV, and so we actually lost a couple of radio spots.
Yeah.
So it was, there were summers like that too. So you don't get an opportunity like this. And Howie Rose had been there for 21 years with New York, and Jiggs McDonald for 15 before that. So they haven't had a job open. They've had the job open once in 35 years. So for me to get in is just remarkable, and I can't seem to even wrap my head around it. I'm fortunate enough to kind of sneak my way in there. But the process started. Howie announced on May 18th that he was not coming back for next season, and on May 19th, my agent had a first conversation with the MSG networks, and kind of they liked the initial stuff. They asked for a few more, so I mean they were aware of who I was and were somewhat interested from May 19th, and I didn't sign a contract until Wednesday.
Wow!
So it was a really long process. I wound up going down for an interview in mid-June. I wound up going back in early July for an audition where I actually called a game off a television monitor along with Butch Goring, who's going to be the analyst there with me this season, and kind of showed them what I could do in a live setting, working alongside the guy that I'm going to be working with. And so from there, that was the last thing that I had done for a while. I didn't hear anything for weeks. And then last weekend, I got an email, or I got a phone call from my agent who said, hey, they'd like you to meet with John Ledecky, who is the new owner of the Islanders, as soon as possible.
Wow.
And so last Monday, I actually drove down to New York City, and I went to the Mets-Yankees game with the owner of the Islanders and at Citi Field, and had a great time, and got to get to know him in a real casual setting for 4 hours. We got to chat, and I thought it went really well, and I liked him, and obviously he did not like me. So that put the finishing touches on it, and we got the contract done, and here we are.
Brendan Burke has been named the Islanders play-by-play guy, and I got to tell you, the one thing about hockey is it is one of the sports where they still are using broadcasters. It's hard for a hockey player to come out, and because hockey is tough to call.
It's so quick,
very fast, and baseball and football. So many former athletes are taking away those broadcast jobs, but hockey is still that sport. But when we talk to kids that are going to college, and the one thing they always, guys especially, it's like I want to be a play-by-play guy. You can. It's so difficult to get the job you just got.
Yeah.
Well, and you deserve it, and congratulations again.
No, it is, and kids are, it is a job. The problem, one of the reasons why it's such a tough job to get is because everybody wants to do it, and everybody wants to do it so badly that they'll do it for free.
Right.
That's the amazing part of it. Is it's one of those things where there's always, if you don't want to do it, somebody else is willing to do it for less money.
You're right.
And it becomes that cutthroat business where you have to. I was fortunate enough to land a job doing ECHL hockey, AA hockey, right out of school at 22 years old. And not everybody gets a chance to do that. I didn't have to, live in my parents' house and call high school games for years to get that opportunity, where a lot of guys do. And I can certainly understand not being able to, if you want to have a family and support your kids and all that kind of stuff, to not be able to hang with it long enough to get the opportunity that I got. I get that. And I was really fortunate to get to a good spot right away. I'll be honest, if I had to go for 5 years back home and live for $20,000 a year, I might not have stuck with it. And then a guy who right now is the voice of the New York Islanders might not have gotten the opportunity.
Yeah.
So there are plenty of guys that have that story. Kevin Burkhardt, who does National Football League games for Fox and Major League Baseball games, he was selling cars and had given up the dream and just kind of gave it one last shot, and look where he is. I mean, and he was 40 years old when he finally got a break. I mean, there's so many talented broadcasters that are fighting for these jobs. It's incredible.
And the story I told about Jim Jackson, I mean, I was there. He was one step away from being your linesman for National Grid, and he got the gig. So other names, quickly, that have come out of here.
Tim Roy with the Golden State Warriors.
Yep, great.
Brad Davies was with the Texans pre- and post-game, plus sports talk radio in the great state of Texas.
Dan Horde is the I think for the Bengals. I think he does play-by-play for the Bengals. Dan, although most of his career was in Syracuse, he worked for the Little Falls Mets when I was there.
Hacksaw Hamilton was doing radio talk, sports talk, and does it now in California. I'll mention another local being Craig Muter, who went, of course, from paper to the Baseball Hall of Fame, and then Brent X in Syracuse now. So a lot of people starting in this market. I know this wasn't your start, Brendan, but a lot of people who worked here have gone on to big things.
Well, it was the launch. It launched it all. And Brendan Burke, we congratulate you and wish you the best, man.
Well, thank you so much. And, hey, I just discovered one yesterday, another one. Michael Haynes, who's the TV play-by-play voice of the Colorado Avalanche, spent 1 year with the Utica Bulldogs in 93-94.
Wow. I did not know that. That's really cool.
He does his research, too.
I stumbled across that the other day, and I didn't know that either. So I'll
pretty
throw that
cool.
in there.
Good stuff. Again, Brendan, thank you so much for what you've given to this community. It was a great launch of this Comets team to have you as the voice, and now you move on, and we congratulate you.
No, thank you so much. I'm very appreciative of everything this community has done for me, and I'll take it with me, that's for sure.
Good stuff. All right, best wishes. Thanks so much.